Alrighty, well, we are live. Mike Beverly, thanks so much for joining me, and happy Friday to you, sir.
Happy Friday to you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Are you have any golf on the books for this weekend or anything fun coming up on the schedule?
Uh, Not this weekend, maybe practice Sunday. I'm going to play in an event next month, so I need to start working. I don't get to play a lot in my role, but going to see my daughter, travel down and meet her halfway. And I think the big question from her boyfriend, they've been ring shopping, so I might get the conversation this
Wow.
weekend. Yeah. So that's exciting to see her. I get to see her. She lives about outside of New Orleans, so 5 hours away. So I see her every few months. So that's exciting to get to see her.
Maybe it's too soon to say congratulations in order, but that is very exciting. I remember I made the call to my now wife's father during COVID. And I kind of told him, I was like, hey, would have loved to do this in person, but, any major objections? And I think the fact, if you guys can do that in person, that'll be special. Maybe on the course. Is he a golfer?
He's learning to play. He started a couple years ago in college, and I've given him a set of old clubs to get going. But they're both getting started in their professional careers. He's a big hunter.
Okay.
Yeah, big duck hunter, and Louisiana boy. So
There you go. Yeah, my sister went to Tulane in New Orleans, and actually my mom did as well. And it's pretty interesting. I went to her graduation, and I don't think I've ever seen so much culture packed into one city as New Orleans, with the French influence and the, kind of the Southern vibe with the little bit of Vegas in there. It feels like, and you'll have a good time for sure.
A lot going on for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, Mike, appreciate you joining. It's been great getting to know you really over the last few months since we've started conversations around collaborating. And now that we're up and running, we're off to the races. But we'd love to just start off. I know you're in this current role, president and CEO of SunBelt, which encompasses the Robert Trent Jones Trail. But maybe tell us a little bit about your journey. How'd you get into this role, and what was your first step into the world of golf?
Yeah, so I played golf at Marshall University, had a degree in psychology, and that's was counseling actually at a facility, and that's where I met my wife. She wasn't a patient or a student, but we were both counseling kids. We met there, and then, I really decided I wanted to take a year off, because in that field, you got to get your master's, your doctorate, and I played golf and switched majors multiple times, finding something I just liked. And I decided I'm going to take a year off. And a guy I played golf with against in high school and college invited me to come down to Hilton Head. So I was just going to go down for a year and just take some time. I really wasn't ready to jump right back in studying. And I got down there and I loved it. And I've always been athletic and played sports my whole life. And then I was like, I watched my dad for years come home. He was a construction engineer with the telephone company, and bring blueprints and all this stuff. It's like, man, if I'm going to work after hours and work a long day, you got to just do something you enjoy. And I decided to dive in and have never looked back. So that was, 1991 in Hilton Head. So I just stayed there for about 7 years. Worked from the backdrop all the way up to head pro at Port Royal, which was a 54-hole site at the time. Then left there and opened the second course at St. James Plantation, which is in Southport, North Carolina, between Wilmington and Myrtle Beach, and then transferred with the management company out to Overland Park, Kansas. Spent about 5 years there, 5 years in Kentucky, and then now I've been be 18 years with the trail in December. So lots of moving around. We used to joke we were military without the benefits. But,
there you go.
Luckily, I'm so blessed with my wife that I have, who understood the long hours it takes to work in the golf business as an operator. And I ran 54 for whole facilities for basically 20 years of my 33 that I've been in the business. And those are 6 and 7 day weeks a lot of the year, and lots of tour events. And then, those are 100-hour weeks before and after. So I was lucky to have someone who could raise kids. But I was still blessed to be able to coach and be involved with their team sports, but you just have to manage your time. But golf's taken us lots of places, and we've met phenomenal people. And I was lucky to get the opportunity back with the trail, and reunite with my family, who had all kind of ended up in Alabama over time. I've got a twin brother and a sister, and my sister was the first down, and then my brother met his future wife down. He moved down. They had the first grandkids, and then my parents moved down, and I was all the way out in Kansas. So we've kind of just worked our way back to get, and now I'm just so lucky to have a great job with a great company and family back reunited. So
the whole Beverly clan is all in Alabama right now?
my sister's recently moved. She was in banking business. She had to move to Tennessee for a while. Now she's just down in Florida, but only about an hour from one of our locations in Dothan. So she's not too far away, maybe a little under 3 hours.
Love
so
it.
Not far away. Yeah.
So you've probably got the Beverly family trail, right?
Yeah.
You can take a lap around the RTJ Trail for research, and then along the way you probably have those plots doing the Beverly family trail.
Yeah, stop off and see them. Yeah, it's good. So yeah, we've been lucky to get back together and have our kids be around their grandparents. So it's good.
That's special. Well, question for you, as you're going through the grind of building your career in the golf business, you're putting in 100-hour weeks. You probably aren't getting many calls with good news. It's usually, Mike, this thing's broken, or, hey, we have this issue. How did you manage to not burn out? I mean, it seems I've heard from other folks that it could be a real grind, with your family emotionally. How'd you manage to stick with that energy?
It's always fun to go to the PGA show once a year and just, connect with people. And I run into people that I'm still, but every year it's less and less, right? So, and it's one of our big topics in golf has been, the last couple of years, is that work-life balance, because the generation today, they don't want to work 6 and 7 days a week, and weekends in particular, but obviously that's our busiest time, or weekends and holidays. And our facilities, we're open every day at Christmas. So it takes a special spouse. I mean, if you're raising a family, someone who's independent, strong, can run the household when you're not there, and not make me feel guilty for working and providing for the family. But I've been so blessed with that. We had our 30th anniversary. Our anniversary is on 9/11, believe it or not, last year with the Ryder Cup. About a year before, we got the notifications from the PGA about ticket allotment. So I was like, hey, you want to go to? We talked about going overseas. Really never been to Europe. Saying, how would you like to go to Rome and go to the Ryder Cup? And I just want to go one day, but we'll spend 10, 11, 12 days, whatever you want, and do our 30th anniversary over there. And we did that, and just so lucky. But the other aspect to answer your question is you have to love what you do, I think. And it doesn't matter what you are. If you don't like what you do, you get burnt out. If you don't enjoy getting up to go to work every day, that's a tough thing to do. And, I made the right decision early on to do something and be around something that I enjoyed. You know how it is. I mean, you're dabbling in the golf business now. If you love to play, the old saying is, if you want to play golf, don't get in the golf business. Right. There's some truity to that, but there's some, some things like you can always find time, certain times of the year are not as busy as others. And the other thing is you have to make time. Just anything that's valuable to you, you just put it on the schedule like you have a meeting, and you make time for yourself.
Right.
And because to me, that's the thing that brought you in. So you have to continue to play a little bit, and that is the love of the game. And I've really pushed our directors of golf and so forth to get out on the golf courses, because it's our product.
Right.
And they need to see it. They need to communicate with the superintendents. But that experience of being out there is what your customer sees. And if you can't converse with them and you're not up to date on conditions and so forth, it doesn't look good, So I really have tried to get them to play more golf and enjoy the reason we got in the business.
Absolutely. No, it's funny because I still feel like I'm in my golf honeymoon phase. I didn't pick up a club for the first time until maybe 4 or 5 years ago, believe it or not. I fell in love with the game. I wrestled in college. So my dad didn't play. I didn't have buddies play. Like I was, I'm sure when you look at those NGF charts of the last, 5 years, and you see a bunch of big bumps up and to the right, I was one of the specs on there along with all my pals. And that's part of
thank you.
Absolutely. That's part of the journey. So it's funny. I'm grinding on my game. I got a net set up in the garage, and I'm, hunting for pars out there. But fortunately, I have a day job, thankfully not related to performing on the course.
We got you, right?
Yeah,
We've got the hooks in now. So
absolutely. Do you have any issues with recruiting? You obviously run a big portfolio, and you said that, this new generation, it's a different work-life balance expectation. And I know in Alabama, I mean, how's the talent pool for y'all in terms of getting great, operators in your courses?
we're pretty solid in our upper level management. We've struggled some with assistant golf professionals and assistant food and beverage. Food and beverage is always the toughest. There's just a lot of turnover that goes with that in general. But yeah, I think, we operate all public facilities and they're very busy. All of our sites are multiple holes, multiple courses out of one clubhouse. So even our slowest days at some sites in the winter, we're doing over 300 rounds on average. And that's out of one clubhouse, which is, an 18-hole golf course never sees that. So our downtime is still busy. Now to them, it's not, because they're used to 600 round days, 500 round days. And so a 300 round day is a relief, but it's just what you get used to. But back to the recruiting side. Yeah, we trying to find assistant golf professionals and then retain them. Yeah, it is tough. It's competitive right now because I think there really is a shortage. And, we've done everything the last few years. We look at, actually, we're going through the budget process now. So every 2 years, I've made a commitment to go through all our job descriptions and pay ranges and make sure we're competitive on all fronts, whether it's a housekeeper or a cook or golf professionals or food and beverage. But there's a lot of benefits to working on the golf side that you don't get working in a typical industry. I mean, you're around, it's recreation. So people are generally in good spirits when they come, generally. They have a bad round, that may change.
Right.
But, you do work a lot of hours, but, like food and beverage, our selling points is we don't do dinner. So we close the grill at 4. So, you're working at other restaurants, you're closing bars at 1, 2 in the morning, and you got to open at 10. And so I think, it's just, you have to sell it just like anything else, the benefits of working. We have a great benefits package, 401k matching, a lot, health, dental, all that good stuff. So, it's just, a lot of guys love playing golf and they think, I want to be in the golf business. Then they get in it and realize it's a job. And I did early on when I got in and worked up when I decided to get in the golf business. I've always had a business mindset. I wanted to play, but I wasn't out playing every day. Like I was trying to learn budgets and learn the operations and was always looking for the next opportunity to grow. And, there's places out there where you can be an assistant golf professional for 10, 15 years. And I appreciate those that want to do it, but we'd like to surround ourselves with people that want the next job. Like I want someone who wants my job. So for an assistant, I want them to want a head pro job, whether it's with us or we train, develop them, and they move on. That's the kind of the culture and the mindset that someone's trying to better, because those are people going to make your operation better, whether they're there for 2 years or 10. So having said that, just kind of spinning off of that conversation, we put in place, we have our own internal development programs on the maintenance side, food and beverage, and golf. And the golf side kind of parallels the PGA program. In other words, there's phases. And as you're going through phase 1 of your PGM program, we're trying to develop you within the site. And then phase 2, you are exposed to more things. You're into inventory controls, you're doing scheduling, managed human resources starting to come in. The phase 3 guys, going into getting closer to his class A, that's the guy we're trying to prep for the head pro. And, they're interviewing skills, all those business things. We just try to parallel. So when they do get their class A, we want them to be ready to be a head golf professional. And we have 10 locations and 26 golf courses, but we only have 10 locations within the trail. So sometimes we lose a guy.
Right.
But I'm proud of the fact that they developed. Secondly, I'm proud that they can go to an interview and say, this is the program that we went through, a real training and development program. And they have a really good business sense about them. And then, there's always the opportunity to come back if a director's job opened, then they could come back because they're familiar with it. And that's happened a lot. And then I think that shows that the culture, while they were here, they really enjoyed working for our company. So, those are things I think when we sit down to interview those candidates, in a tough environment, like these are the structure, these are the things, these are the goals we're going to help you get to. If you want to be a head pro, we're going to help you learn things to get there. And that hopefully gets them in the door. But yeah, it's been tough. We don't do housing for like PGM. We've looked into that, but we currently don't do that. So yeah, it's a lot of job postings and weeding through applications to find the right people.
No, I love what you said around growth mindset. I was a former athlete, and I would just think every day, like, how do I get 1% better today? And if I can just chip away, get a little bit better, then all of a sudden you're enjoying the journey, right? Versus thinking so much about the outcome. And I try and talk about that with our team all the time is, what are your personal goals? What are your professional goals? And I hope that you're doing something when you jump out of bed, you're fired up to go attack the day, right?
Well, a big part in our industry, I think, is finding people like yourself, like in your company, that are going to help us find more revenue, make our customers happy. And those relationships are so important. And we've really done a good job last couple of years, whether it's point of sale providers, credit card processors, app development, and then even customer service. We work with a great group who actually, I think, led us to you guys. 59 Club does a great job of touch points, 300 touch points on visits, because it's something we're about. And we do have customer surveys, but to have a real secret shopper program that comes in blind, it's really made us better. And now I'm really thinking this next year, my team doesn't realize this, but I've been talking with our HR manager, but I want to use those grades along with some of our internal visits and grades to kind of make it competitive.
Yeah.
And have a trail service award that goes to a sites, and then maybe departmental stuff to spread it around the trail and reward those who are doing great jobs. But I believe in competition, even internally within companies. I think it's very, very important and can be fun,
Oh yeah.
And that's what I'm looking at next.
I love that. I mean, I always say this, which is a quote shamelessly taken from somebody who said, show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome. If you're incentivized to give a great service, you're going to do that, whether that's financially, whether that's with awards, or whether it's just, the culture that you're setting, that you're incentivizing a great product and a great service. And that, of course, will always flow down into the top line, right? Whereas if you obsess over the top line, you might be compromising that service and that product, and all of a sudden, it has the opposite intended effect. And it does seem like, within the RTJ Trail, you guys are obsessed with giving the best possible customer experience end to end in that journey, which seems pretty unique. And where did that come from?
I think it's always been here, and just being in the South, just Southern hospitality, we have a lot of good people. It starts with people, right? So the funny thing is, we did some consultant work probably 10 years ago. John Cannon, who was our chairman now, was president before me. He and I did some consultant work with the University Club. And we took training seriously, but we really didn't have any structure. And I was like, if someone comes to secret shop us because they're down to us and someone else as a consultant, and they asked one of our people at the bag drop or somewhere else, hey, tell me about your training program. We didn't really have an answer. So we developed our own internal program for there and tried to make it sensitive, because you do have a lot of, we have a couple of courses in College Town. So, every semester you're rolling out new people. So it can't be a 3 or 4 hour training deal and they work 2 weeks and they quit, or, each semester you're rolling in a new crew. It's got to be something that's simple, understandable, and relatable. And you got to make it real, in my opinion. They've got to understand it, that it applies to every time they go out and spend money. What are your expectations when you go to a restaurant or you go somewhere? And we related that. So we just call it we call it white glove service, which is, a standard deal there. But one of Scott, our vice president, was at Auburn, and we were all doing kind of our own things and reading surveys and discussing the staff meetings, but we didn't have a structured trail wide. So he was calling his white glove, and I had something else going on at my facility when I was the director. So we kind of just merged the two, and we just came up with a simple, anagram for glove, which is, greet the customer, lead the customer, obtain feedback, value the feedback, and then encourage them to return. So I can stand there with the backdrop guy and say, listen, if you go into, Longhorn Steakhouse, Prattville, right? What do you expect? We expect to be greeted, right? We expect to be led to the table, led through the menu options, led through the specials. You expect them to come back and check on your meal. Is everything, is it cooked to your liking? If it's not, or you didn't get a side item that you ordered and you say, no, I didn't, I'm still waiting on my French fries. Well, do they value that? Oh, I'm on that. And they fix it quickly. And then you always expect when you make payment or whatever that, you get a warm thank you and please come back to see us. It's so simple when you explain it that way, but it's amazing how many spots where you go in fast food, they don't do any of that,
Right.
And one of my aunts with 59 Club, when we brought them to do some training, he laughed at me, so he kept using it against me. It's like, I could ask a kid in Alabama, it's like, what's the best service you get anywhere? And you could probably almost guess it's Chick-fil-A, right?
Yep.
And I said, okay, here's my rant about Chick-fil-A. They really, they're polite, they're efficient, right? They get you through the drive-through better and faster than anyone, which is a service. But they don't really provide service. They're not doing table service. You're not doing, they're so good at what they do. So I'm not trying to take away, but we have 20 to 30 touch points during a visit and around the golf between the backdrop, dropping your clubs, coming up, where do you go to check in? And then you go to the golf shop and there's another engagement. And then, back outside to go to the range, or they go to food and beverage and you see the beverage cart 4 times, you see the marshal 4 or 5 times, the start. We have so many touch points to really provide service and make a difference in their experience. And that's why I try to just open their eyes. Chick-fil-A is good because they say please and thank you. They take your money. Here's your food. It's efficient and you get out of there. But look at all the opportunities we really have to provide service, as opposed to just 1 or 2 brief things and you're gone. And you think of that, in a 4.5, 5 hour, and we have a lot of package play. They're playing 36 holes that are there 10, 11, 12 hours a day. And you throw rain delays in and, you can really make a difference on their visit by how you treat them. So one mantra John always said to me, John Cannon, was, we can do all the marketing in the world and the write-ups and everything we get can bring them here, but the service and the people and the experience is what's going to bring them back a second time. So the whole deal, finding retaining customers is a lot easier than finding new ones. And then the best advertising literally is word of mouth, that they go on a golf trip, it's affordable, it's great conditions, they were treated well. They're going to go home and tell the other people at their club. And, so trying to get our culture on that is something we take seriously. And, we're now putting some meat behind it, I think. So instead of just being ourselves polite because we're from the South and we're yes, ma'am, yes, sir, thank you for playing, but there's some more behind it. There's grades, there's rewards, there's recognition, and we try to make it fun at the same time. So
yeah, back to your restaurant analogy, I read somewhere that you can, if you solve a customer's problem, they had a late side, they got the wrong dish, and you solve that problem in an efficient, helpful way, you've actually given them a better experience than if they had just gotten the right thing the first time. So, if you solve a problem for someone and you care, they're going to walk out of there feeling better than if they had gotten the perfect experience the first time.
Well, you've won a fan, right? That's going to come back and they're probably going to tell somebody. And the reason is because they're surprised, because a lot of people don't go that extra level, or they just, how many people say they just don't care, they just don't care. And, I've even with our agronomy, vice president of agronomy, we rode every hole on the trail in the last month and looking at, whether it's capital needs or just day-to-day agronomy, how can we get better? Like that's my whole deal. Same thing you said, what can we do better to get better? And I'm watching guys, just spin bunkers, right? And they're going so fast, right? And it's the guy's just doing his job and he's trying to do it quickly and efficiently and timely, and he thinks he's doing a great job. Well, when they get done, there's a snow cone in the middle of it because it spins up, and it's you're in the middle of the bunker and you've got 3 inches of sand in your ball. And it's it's not his fault. he's trying to get it done as quickly as he can so he can go back and do another task. But what you forget to think about that little thing is that's the product the customer plays, and the guy that hits it in that bunker isn't going to be very happy, right? And if he's got bets on the line, whatever, But anyway, all those little things add up over time to what the customer thinks about the facility, where it's food and beverage, golf course maintenance. So every job there without a golf course, whether you're cutting cups, right, or you're doing it the best you can so the customer, if you start putting the customer in the forefront of everything you do and think of it that way, you might slow down a little bit. Like, I'm not racing to get that. Well, so what, took you 10 extra minutes or 5 extra minutes to do all the bunkers, but you were careful going in and out of the bunkers, and you weren't having, or you stopped when you got done and looked at the bunker. Oh, I need to hand rake that one spot to level it. Those add up in the customer experience. You may never see a comment on that, but you're going to see it in your rounds, number golf, repeat customers, and loyal customers.
Right.
So, yeah.
All the little things compound, right? There's probably from when I book a tee time to when I sit down at the bar after the round, there's probably 50 to 75 little small things, whether it's how the merchandise is laid out, how frictionless, whether there's backup on the course, whether, there's divot mark, there's 100 little customer points. And if it seems like what you all are doing is trying to obsess over every step in that customer journey and just taking a constant iterative process improvement, which, ultimately, if you delight someone, you've got a fan for life, as you said. I'm really impressed with this glove idea, this framework. When you all came up with glove, I think one thing that tends to happen is, the executives in the strategy session come up with a great framework and great strategy, great plan. But how'd you go from idea about glove to executing it in the field?
Well, we actually made a pin that the employees put on when they come in. I don't have mine on in my office, but and that was the signature. Like, when you're here, you're thinking about service, right? You're here to serve the customer. So whatever day you're having at home, money troubles, family troubles, argument with your significant other, that's time to change into, we're here for the customer mode. But then we just, we put a training packet together, simple, not complicated. The white glove, the service with white glove is pasted throughout the departments. It's like it's in the kitchen, it's in the golf shop, it's at the bulletin boards in each respective department. So you always make it visible. And then again, our customer surveys, each site has staff meetings weekly, and they're discussing those, and the corporate staff, we're reviewing and we're following up. Hey, this customer needs a callback. Have you done this yet? And like a lot of my guys, I already talked to them. So that's the culture we're trying to get. The challenge for us literally is your young hourly staff. When you're bringing on new high school guys that might be their first job, and a lot of them are into their phones, or trying to keep them off their telephones, keep them focused on the customer, trying to make eye contact. So there's so many good things that are already out in the world that you beg, borrow, and steal from. It's just like the simple 5 and 10 foot rule. If you're 10 feet from someone, you make eye contact, just smile, and you do that within 5 feet. We ask them to speak. Good morning. It doesn't have to be, can I help you, all the time. If you just speak to them, that will put the customer at ease. Oh, this person's approachable, and they might have a question. I told the guys when I was doing my training all the time, when I was running the site, it was funny to see, older folks would come to the facility a lot of times the day before, just to familiarize themselves with where they're going in the morning, where they're checking in, where's the range located, come in the golf shop, because there's that anxiety. And you don't realize that with people, but it's like, just being approachable and being friendly is going to open the conversation, and they're going to ask a question. Now you're providing service just because you smiled and made eye contact and asked them, good morning. And they're like, oh, hey, good morning. Hey, can you tell me, where do I get range balls? So it just opens up the dialogue and gives you the opportunity to serve. But trying to get that through sometimes, with the hourly guys, you really do have to work harder with new employees and younger employees to keep the culture the way you want it. And I can't say we're great at it. We try, but literally it's your key people at each site. Even your director of golf, or your GM, they could be passionate about it, but they can't do it themselves. It takes every manager at the facility, right, has to be on the same page, and every manager, whether they're walking by a person not in their department, the food and beverage manager or the sales and marketing director walks by a person on their cell phone, then it's got to be addressed. Because if the director does it, I've used this a lot of times, if the director's not there on Sunday, that's his day off.
Right.
The kids know he's not there. It's like having two parents that one's strict and one's not, right? Well, I can be on my phone because he's not here. And then it's like it erodes everything you're trying to do all the time. So it's just about consistency and accountability. I mean, accountability is so big, and I think a lot of people are scared to have conversation, but that's how you get better. And accountability doesn't have to be controversial, doesn't have to be combative, it doesn't have to be criticism at first, right? It becomes that way. It's progressive, as if you're addressing. I always like, and I think parenting made me a better manager of people, because right, you talk with your child, your third conversation about cleaning your room isn't the same as the first, and much the same as it should be about being on work on time or being in the right uniform or those things. And if you're documenting and doing all the simple things, it's very simple. And then everybody understands the expectations. So if you're not setting that in the beginning, you make it complicated on yourself. It's like letting your kids run wild and have their cell phone out 24 hours a day. And all of a sudden it's like, we got to stop them now where they can only use it 1 hour a day. Well, that's going to be a hard transition. So the better you can get started, the easier it is, I think, to maintain what you expect.
Love that. Yeah, I've never really thought about the parallels between parenting and managing. Maybe that's because I don't have any kids, but my dad was a military guy and ran a tight ship. He was a Navy guy. So we always knew the expectations, and it was always about 100% effort and 100% positive attitude of those controllables. And if you have a good attitude and you put in your effort, the outcome, whatever happens. And probably is somewhat similar to running a business, right? If everybody's obsessing over their craft and doing a great job, the outcome will take care of itself, right? A couple more for you, and then we'll wrap it. I'll let you enjoy your Friday here. As you think back to your career, you've been many different places. You've seen a lot of things. What are some of the mistakes that you've seen operators make, maybe as a pattern, or is there anything that sticks out to you where there is some challenges that you've seen operators make that are avoidable or that others should keep in mind?
Yeah, I guess over time, and I think it's a little bit different right now because the industry is doing so well. One of the biggest things I always fought was discounting within the local markets, because it does nothing. Your operating expenses are always going to go up, right? They're going to increase with inflation from time to time, which has really been a big impact the last few years. I mean, equipment now, mowers, things are so expensive. So how do you lower your rates? Especially at the time when the number of golfers demographic was not increasing. Luckily, this last 4 or 5 years, we've had a real boost, and that's allowed a lot of people to get equipment that they've never had, or they had deferred. So the big things I see are like that, from an operator standpoint: deferred maintenance, real training programs. I think for your smaller courses that are, I've kind of been with a lot of management companies and been on the public side of golf a lot. I've done 2 public or private facilities as well, but the smaller sites don't have the HR expertise and the training a lot of time, because they are standalone, and you get, an accountant at the club or a GM or an office manager, and they're trying to wear so many hats, where I feel like in our company, we're not big. I mean, we have 1,300 employees, but 10 sites within the state, but I can make it around. My operations managers can make it around. So I feel like we have a pretty good grasp of what's going on. Not that we don't get some surprises, but we have structure, and I have such a good team to rely on. And when you're at those small deals, we did a training last year with a bunch of other PGA stuff, and my HR person spoke, and I was like, here's the crowd you're going to speak to. So you're going to have these guys that are small facilities that are not going to have the support that I have. And that I've been accustomed to. And, policies and procedures are born out of failure, right? Oh God, we can't allow that to happen again. Here's a policy or here's a procedure that puts in place. Where you walk in with us, there's a handbook, there's structure, there's deals. So if you don't have those things in place, I think it's very imperative that you do. And I think even if you engage with the management company from an advice perspective for a year or two to help you get those things in place, I think that's very valuable because they've already got the templates there. They can help you adjust to your needs, your clientele, and put the structure in place for your facility. So I think a really good management company, and we're not managing anything outside of the trail, something I would like to do. But if you do a really good job as a management company, I think more the consultant deal is the way to go. That long-term deal of having, I don't know, as you get so big, right? How do you retain your culture, your deal? I think that's very hard to do. But to come in and consult and maybe put the right people in place for them and then give them the structure, and then you back off and let them run the facility, and like, hey, we're always a phone call away. We can come back and do assessments, or call us back in a year. We'll come back in. That's the model I see. So I would encourage that. The other thing, I guess, holding your vendors accountable to provide what you expect to make the experience better. So we push, we're going to push you guys, and we would expect you guys, to help us if you see things, suggestions. But on the point of sale side, app developer, we ask for a lot because the way we want to run a business and the reports and the things that we need to do it. But I think don't be shy. You're spending money, real money, and you just have to be demanding of what you want. They'll create it. It's there. Sometimes you might have to pay a little extra to get what you want, but if that's what you need to run your business the way you want, I think it's worth it. And the feedback that you get from that is invaluable. So
love that. Maybe last one for you, Mike. If you were maybe talking to your younger self, or if you're talking to a future professional who loves the game of golf and is thinking about a career in golf, what advice do you have for someone, whether it's on the instruction track or DOG track versus the management track? What sort of advice would you have for someone who wants to build a career in golf?
I think you have to be true to yourself. In other words, find what works for your personality and what your passions are, because there's so many jobs within our industry, but particularly like being at a private club, and there's the upper end private clubs versus public and resort. Like I've done resort public play, 54 holes, like I said, for 20 years of it. And it fit me because it was so busy. I need a lot going on. I like the fact that the guests every weekend were from different places. It was easier to engage. I've done private clubs twice. I loved the experience, but I couldn't imagine myself doing those for like 20-year jobs. I just think for me, it would become boring, but that's me. The best part of that job was the people, but also it was redundant, the same people. Whereas like at Capitol Hill, when I was in Prattville, SEC football, every week we had LSU, A&M, so many people coming through. It's just so easy to engage and talk, like, where you guys from, joke about athletics, and that really fit me. So I would challenge anyone. I thought I wanted to do teaching, right? When I moved to Hilton Head and got started, I was working with the golf school, and then on my free time, and if I closed, I taught 3 lessons in the morning, afternoon. It's like, man, I realized after doing a few years, I was like, I can't do this every day. It takes really a special person, and you sit there and watch a guy shank it for an hour, and then you got to go play that afternoon. It's like, how do you cut that off? And just being out on that tee, it is really, really hard work to teach and stand out there all day long. So you learn that about yourself as you get into the business. But I would challenge people, like, working every different, working daily fee, working resort or private in the first 5 to 10 years, and find out where your niche is and where you're most happy. I think you'll have a great career.
Brilliant. Well, Mike, thanks so much for joining. Feel like pencils out over here. Got a amazing overview of how you're seeing the world. Really appreciate it, and excited to work together this year, and hopefully many to come.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on.